I'm super excited about this podcast today. We were talking a little bit about how like, I think that there are some episodes that are really fun because there's like so many stories and things like that that come from it. But it's not always that I get to have like a hyper expert in their field in here. And so personally, I was just like, I am so excited to be able to ask questions about nutrition.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm super appreciate you being willing to do this. And for all of like the content that you share just on your personal stuff too, it's all very helpful. So
awesome. That's good. That's what we want.
Looking forward to this thing. Okay. So one of the first questions that I want to get into is I love your just like overall 30,000 foot take on food.
Mm-hmm.
When you say that like everything starts with having a healthy relationship with food, what does that mean?
That's a really good question. So as a dietitian, and I've been practicing now this is 17 years. So this is a long time of working with people. And if food makes you feel shameful or thinking about your relationship with food, if you don't trust your body, if you don't enjoy food, if you get very insecure about food or offended or feel like you're missing something, that there's this perfect diet out there and you just got to try this next thing and this next thing, then you have this unhealthy relationship with food. And that is where you're just not comfortable. And so to have a healthy relationship with food, it's to see that food is in some ways just food. It's an inanimate object. It has no power. Like it doesn't, you're not bad or good. Like if you eat a ton of kale, that's great. But you're not a good person. And if you eat a lot of brownies, like that's great, but you're not a bad person. Like food does not define who you are. But then also food, yes, it's just food, but it's also an opportunity to serve others, like somebody that's, lost someone in their family or a mom that's just had a baby. Like we give them food, we break bread together. We have other people over to our homes and we have over a meal. And it's a way to be creative. Like some people can bake and do really great things. I'm not one of them. Or some people can cook and, don't burn things down and they can multitask and not ruin dinner. So there's a lot of creativity in that. And it's also a source of joy. And so when you can see food that it has no moral value, but it also is just something that is a part of life and never goes away. And if that's twisted in any sort of fact, that's a source of stress all the time. And the thing that you do next to, breathing and maybe peeing is eating.
Right.
And so if that's always terrible, like that's not, like how are you ever going to make changes?
Yeah.
So stepping back and recognizing where your relationship with food comes from, whether it's from your parents or whether it's something that somebody said to you in middle school or, why do I feel the way that I do about food? And what am I expecting? And then kind of starting from there, like, oh, wow, I can eat. Like I'm meant to eat. Like being hungry is not a bad thing. Yeah. And desiring, I'm going back to brownies. Clearly I need some brownies, but like desiring chocolate does not make you a weak person, right? Or loving vegetables doesn't make you a hippie. You know what I mean? Like we just have associated so much with food and we're like, we're missing the point. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of interesting to me to hear that because I would imagine that people's relationship with food or like maybe like a misalignment with it probably comes from the fact that it is a fairly complex thing when you put it that way.
Yes.
Like when it's something that, like I tend to eat for purely like the fuel part of it, right? If I'm eating anything that's like particularly delicious, it's because I'm either out to dinner or somebody like blessed me with this meal. So like my relationship with food is very much like it's a tool to use for something. And I'm trying my best to get into I'm trying to find a couple of those meals where it's like my grandma's pumpkin bars, for example. Every time she makes those, everybody loses their freaking mind and like asks for it for birthdays and holidays and stuff.
Right.
And I'm like trying to find like, what's my thing where I can like bring that to a place and like, hell yeah, Drew brought whatever it's going to be. But it's interesting that like, there are so many different, like utilities for food that it can be fuel. It can be a thing to connect over. It can be a thing to stress over.
Right.
And so what are some of the things that people go through that like kind of like shakes up their relationship with food? Like how do they get to a place where they need to like realign that thing and get to a good place with it?
Most of the time, and this is again in my experience, it's often diet culture. Like in some way, diet culture has entered into their lives as either they've been like a young girl sees her mom always on a diet, so that's normal, or maybe, a kiddo was a little bit chunky, just kind of like not out of their baby years when everybody else was. And so then their parents like put them on a diet. And so then, or that somebody, it typically starts younger.
Okay.
And we are now more heavily influenced by body image and diet culture. And diet culture is just this notion that like you're missing out on something. All of these things that are wrong in your life are stemming from what you're eating, which sometimes that could be it. But a lot of times it's like, well, how well are you sleeping? And are you exercising? And what are your relationships at work? And blah, 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 And so, but then there's this like idea that there's something out there that they're missing. And so however that comes in, that they're trying to run faster or they're trying to get stronger. And so they go into GNC or some supplement store and they see like all of this stuff. And then it becomes almost overwhelming. I think like there's just so much information out there that if you start it all, like you open that door, it's like somebody's closet that's so full, that they're like, don't open the door. And you're like, I just kind of want to see what your organization, and you like open the door and it's all just there. And so then it's almost like it's weighted down on you. And so then you try things and they don't work I like the diet industry and social media influencers and a lot, like this is the best marketing plan is that you give someone a diet that's not going to work, like keto or low carb. And then when it doesn't work because it won't biologically, then you blame the person, right? Not the diet. Like we blame the person, like you don't have enough willpower. Why did you do that? Or you cheated or blah, blah, blah. And you're like, that is just genius from a marketing standpoint, because now the person goes, that diet was good. I couldn't do it. I should try this. Ooh. That didn't work. I couldn't do it. I'm the problem. So I'm always fixing me. When you're like, no, girlfriend, like you need some carbs. That's why you don't have enough energy. This is why you're starving. Like you're intermittent fasting. So you're skipping half of your day and you're wondering why you like can't stop inhaling the potato chips after dinner, right? Like that's not because you can't do intermittent fasting. That's because intermittent fasting isn't serving you. And so a lot of that combined with just like this pressure to like be perfect or that there is a perfect diet. I think that kind of all twists that relationship. And then you become the problem, not everything else, when in reality, it's all of that other stuff.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought when you originally said that diet culture was the problem, where I immediately went to was like, to me, diet culture is like the overall discussion that somebody's having. Like keto gets really popular for a while and everybody tries that. Or like, back in the day, there's like the Atkins diet, or there's like so many different things, right? And seed oils is one of the big ones. Or like, actually, really excited that creatine's kind of made its way into that discussion. So some good, some bad.
Right.
But what I hadn't thought about before is when you mentioned the GNC thing, is that there's like these subcultures of diet also, where if you're trying to like get a lot of gains in the gym or get shredded or whatever the thing is, there's a culture inside of that probably has its toxicities and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll just same with like weight loss culture and same with whatever else.
Right.
So it's interesting that there's like these echo chambers.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Inside of each of those that like whatever thing that you want to like pick apart about yourself.
Right.
Somebody's going to give you something to like hate about yourself.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And sell you a solution.
Exactly. Yeah. That is, and part of this also is that nutrition is a very young science, respectively compared to physics or to chemistry or to math. Those have been going on, astrology. I mean, like so many other things, and nutrition is fairly new, 200, I don't even know, but it's not very old. So we're still collecting a lot of data. And scientific literacy in our culture is very low. Like people's ability to interpret a research study or to understand like what is credible evidence or, like that sort of thing. So when you have this like there's always things that are emerging with research and development and finding, does this work? Does this not work? Well, then that kind of gets sensationalized because, we got to have a headline and, we've got to talk about this. And you read nearly any research article, and even if it's a meta-analysis, it's like gathering tons of data about, or tons of research studies about a particular thing. You read the conclusion, and generally, nearly all the time, it's like, this we tried to answer this question and it broke open 7 more questions.
Right.
So more research is needed before we are 100% sold on this. And can this emerging study be reproducible, right? Like, can it be something that somebody can replicate and get the same answers? And if they can't, that doesn't mean that that study was wrong. It just might've been an outlier. Right. And so you have all of that where we're like still learning a lot and finding these true, like gravity, like, okay, well, we knew gravity was there, but now we have stuff to explain what gravity does.
Right.
And so we kind of accepted that. And so with nutrition, it's just going to take a lot longer to get to that spot. But in the meantime, people pull snippets of this and snippets of that. And, and then they kind of, again, show you what's wrong with you so that you buy their solution.
Right.
And so I think we're just, it's ever present. It's always around, and it is because there's so much information out there and so much misinformation, it's hard to know what's there. Right. And so like, if you don't know what you're looking for, or you don't know what the foundations are, then it's hard to see like, well, that could be an answer. That could be an answer, And so you're kind of always looking.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the biggest issues when it comes to, I guess, the outlook that people have on nutrition is the signal to noise ratio.
Right.
It's like, there's so much information and so many things where if you sat down and just Googled, what should I be doing with my nutrition, or what should I be eating or not eating? You're going to end up with like this 20-page list of avoid seed oils, get this much creatine, but do a loading phase, but then also like do this whey protein, but not like you're going to have a billion things to do and you can't implement all of them at once.
No.
And so I think that by itself is also very discouraging.
Yes.
And kind of spins people out because it's like, oh, for me to be doing the right thing, it's going to take like hundreds of dollars per month.
Right.
Probably a level of commitment that I don't have because nobody can take that many supplements.
Right.
But like, there's so much where it's like, it's overwhelming. And I think a bit defeating where it's like, well, shit, if this is what it means to figure this out, then I don't really want to do that.
No.
So how does like, when somebody's in that boat and they are just like so overwhelmed, what are the things that you start to like ask them, and how do you start to walk down that road as somebody who like has spent 17 years dealing with this situation?
So first of all, is finding out what's their goal, because not everybody, what is really truly their goal? Like it might be, maybe they are 10 or 15 pounds overweight, but that's not their goal. Their goal is to not feel like crap every day. Right. Or their goal is to meal prep or cook better meals, or, so finding out what their goal is the first thing. And then from there, just what I do is like, just tell me about all of your medical history. And then what is a typical day like? And then kind of say like, well, this could be where you're not like, why you are tired at the end of the day, or why, or even asking like, if they have this whole list of supplements, well, how does that make you feel? Did you feel any different with it? And have you tried just doing this, which most of the time is eating breakfast, eating lunch, eating dinner, getting in some fruits and vegetables, making sure that you have enough carbohydrates and fueling your exercise. Like that's mostly what, and once they start doing that, then they start feeling better. And then, cause you've got to get to a baseline, right? Like you've got to be at a place where they've got like a solid, good habits. I would say like solid framework in which they can move the needle.
Okay. So almost setting like a control group, like if you're looking at it like an experiment where like somebody might come to you and be like all sorts of scattered for like when they eat, what they eat, something like that. But establishing a control group of like, okay, you're going to eat this many meals a day. Most of them are going to do this. And then we'll get a baseline for how you're feeling.
Yes. Yeah.
And then figure out that might give you like a fertile ground to like, when you make tweaks, they'll be able to like notice the difference in that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And most of the time that low energy feeling, that like never recovering, not sleeping well, headaches, that stuff kind of dissipates because they're actually fueling their bodies.
That's one of my favorite things is like, there's memes about it all the time where it's like my girlfriend, when she's just like screaming Monster like crazy. And it's like me knowing that she drank 4 coffees today and no water. Like, have you had any water yet today?
Have you had a snack?
Sleep?
Yes.
Just find a way to slip that in there. That's really interesting though, because I think that what I almost like where my brain goes when I'm like, okay, nutrition goals, life goals, like what's the thing I'm trying to accomplish here? For me, it's like, okay, well, how much weight am I trying to lose? Or what do I want my skeletal muscle mass to increase to, or percent body fat? And like, it seems to me like, I'm like, okay, numbers-based, data-based, what's the goal here? And then figure it out.
Right.
What I think is really interesting though, is that you're saying a lot of like a better starting point is actually, what do you want your life to look like?
Right.
Right. So like the headaches, the feeling energized enough at the end of your workday to hang out with your family, or like whatever those things are.
Right.
And so I think that that's an interesting thing, because you don't really hear that when people are talking about their health goals. You hear, I want to lose 10 pounds.
Yes. Yep.
Or I want to increase my bench by this much.
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah, yes. And what for?
Yeah. Yes.
So
yeah.
I'm curious, like, what are some of the things, if people have kind of like fallen into that trap where like all of your health goals have to be attached to a number somehow, what are some of the things that people could like start to think about, or even start to notice in their life, where it's like, oh, it might be possible that your headaches are just this, or that your energy could look like that. Like, what are some of the things that you can start to like kind of have in your noticing sphere as you're like doing some of that goal setting?
So yeah, if they are like, if it is a number based, which I think that's objective data, right? And so that is, and feeling and subjective are sometimes play more of a, like, that's a harder thing to kind of tease out, because you could have low energy because of your nutrition, or you could have low energy because like work is sucking the life out of you. Right.
For sure.
So, but when we're looking at like those numbers based, again, the goal is to reach your goal and stay there, right? Like the goal isn't to do all of this stuff to lose 10 pounds, see that on the scale and be like, peace out, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. And then it goes up and up even more than the 10 pounds. And so it is, let's look at what you can consistently do, and what can we change a little bit that we're going to see a really big impact. So most of the time we see like that people they're not eating enough carbohydrates or enough food in general. And so one thing, and I was talking about this today, is switching your mindset from like, in our diet culture, it's typically weight loss, body composition improvement. Yeah. But what if you thought like performance, and not as an athlete, like you're not going to the Olympics and your high school days and college days are behind you, but like you want to go and work out and be like, yes, like I am doing this. And so in order to train like an athlete, you need to eat like an athlete. And for people who are exercising regularly, that is like athletics, right? Like even if you're not competing, if you're going to the gym or getting your workout in to the same tune that your high schooler is practicing basketball, you know what I mean? Like,
if your schedule's kind of similar, you might be.
Right. Like you are training, you're training for life. And that switch of a mindset then becomes like, it's not this heavy weight loss goal, which don't get me wrong, like weight loss can definitely still happen. And I don't want to, weight loss is a goal, and I don't want to dismiss that by any means, but that hanging over your head feels just like if you're saving for putting money in your retirement account, you kind of see that go up and like, you need to do that. But if you're saving for a vacation, and we're planning our vacation, like, I'm not going to go buy coffee because we're going to the Bahamas or whatever, which versus like, I got to put money in my retirement account. I know that's important, but like, that's still long. Yes, exactly. And it's always hanging over there. And I've had my 401k since I graduated college, blah, blah, blah. But like, yes, still important, but what makes you really excited? And so when you can take that goal and say like, okay, well, if you're going to work out, then you need to be having breakfast afterwards. And if you're going to work out, then you need to be having a small snack, which is probably going to help you feel better. And you're going, and then you need to be drinking this much water. And then when they see that from like an athlete perspective, it's a little bit more attainable. It's more fun.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think a really cool thing to tie into that also is like, thinking about it's like the thing behind the thing, right? It's like, yes, losing 15 pounds might allow you to like feel better. You're probably going to look better. The number will be cool and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But also like, what does that mean? Does that mean that you can this summer, like go on the hike that was like, I'm not going on a 4-mile hike.
Right.
But because you did the cardio and all that stuff to get there, like you can go on that hike now.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you can like do those sorts of things. I know for my dad, for example, was a power lifter in college, played football, all the stuff. And like his joints are fairly torn up from a lot of that. And so when he gets overweight, he's like got the joint pain from having abused them forever.
Right.
And then also being overweight. And so it's things like, if we were to go to like one of his dream golf courses, walking it might be out of the picture at 300 pounds.
Right.
But at 235, 240, back in the picture.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So I think it's been really cool for me to see like people like him in my life be able to have some of the goals attached to something like that, or running their first half marathon, or like whatever that kind of thing is.
Right. Right.
And so I'm curious if that's something that you see as being a helpful thing to like set some of those almost like life mile markers.
Right.
Like, what does this 15 pounds actually mean to you?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and definitely like if you're always striving for that, like that number, and it's just the number solely for the number because this has been put in your head, or it's a pant size that you've got to get. And you're like, but then once you get there, then what, and if it's all for that, once you reach that, are you still going to keep up those habits just to maintain that number on the scale or that pant size? But if you get there and you're like, now I can run the half marathon, or I can beat my kid in doing push-ups, as long as I possibly can, or I can pick them up, or I can throw them on my back or whatever, like then you can see like, okay, well, then it's less about that number or pant size and all the freedom maybe that gave you, or even just to prove to yourself, like I am capable of doing these things. And like if I'm 2 pounds up, whatever, like maybe that's muscle, that I've put now that like it becomes a marker, but not the most important thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I think that data driven goals like that kind of start to lose their luster once you get to them.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like hitting a new salary or buying a new car or something like that.
Right.
It's like, it's really cool once you like getting the thing is like, hell yeah. And a day or two might be pretty cool. But then afterwards it's just like the new normal. Yes, and so it's constantly a moving benchmark. Right. Whereas having some of the life experiences and stuff like that isn't as much.
Right.
Which is kind of cool.
Oh, very sure. Yeah.
So I want to rewind a little bit to where we were talking about with like setting some of that foundation as far as getting somebody like essentially like that control group for themselves, where it's like, you've got a solid foundation. So now you might start to notice a couple changes already, but we're really going to like put something in place where we can start to tweak small things and figure out what the ideal situation is nutritionally for you.
Right.
What does building that foundation look like if somebody is listening to this right now and they're like, okay, I think I want to give this a go and like start to use myself as a test subject a little bit.
Right. Right. Now again, everybody comes with their own, like everybody is unique. And so, and that's the thing with dietitians, like we'll never be black or white. It'll be like, yes, but, or no, but.
Just need a t-shirt that says nuance on it.
Yeah. It's always gray.
It's also complicated.
Yeah. Yes. So really what I've seen work day in and day out with clients, and this is for, my 50-year-old lady that is trying to lose 10 pounds and my 16-year-old high school athlete who is trying to gain weight. Like these are principles that are going to make you feel better with nutrition. So the first thing is always like you want to fuel your day. So like front load your day. So if you're most active during the day, which is most of us, unless you have a night job. But if you're most active during the day, then it makes sense to make sure that most of your fuel is coming in to fuel all of that activity. Because for a good majority of us, we're up, we're either getting kids ready or ourselves ready, we're going to work, or, we're working on something. And then we kind of have like a restful evening or, like this slower time before you go to bed, or you might be crazy up until you go to bed, but then you're sleeping, right? Yeah. So like you want to front load your day so that means breakfast like a queen or king, lunch like a prince or princess, and dinner like a pauper. Now, that doesn't have to be that upside down pyramid, but what I typically see is people are like, I'm not really hungry for breakfast, or like I had a shake and it was 250 calories, and you're like, that and what else did you have? And then they'll kind of snowball and they're like, gosh, I just get hungry at 3 and I can't stop eating. And then we have dinner and then I need a night snack. And you're like, I'm just going to start over in the morning. Well, you're not hungry in the morning because you fueled up at night. And so if you start having like a bigger breakfast, you'll notice like a lot more energy to go through the day, that you won't be chasing that hunger all day long. So that's one of my biggest things is front load your day, is have, even if it's not a reverse pyramid, even if it's like a skyscraper, like all of your meals are the same, then you're going to feel much better.
Okay. So start to like fuel heavy in the morning and then start to like a little bit smaller for lunch, a little bit smallest for dinner.
Right.
And then if you need to like trail off on a little sweet treat or something.
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
that,
Yeah. For sure. Like everybody needs chocolate chips after dinner. Come on.
Oh yeah.
And then getting in, like, we know that fruits and vegetables have a ton of antioxidants. They've got fiber, they've got vitamins and minerals. So it makes sense to have them in your day. Now, you don't have to be a vegan to be plant-based. It just means that you have a lot of plants throughout the day. So that's your fruits and vegetables, your whole grains, nuts and seeds. But vegetables tend to be the one that is the hardest to get into.
So is this like the second layer of this foundation?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Okay. So then like moving on, we would say, so yeah, you're front loading your day and then you're making, you're including vegetables with lunch and dinner. So like for sure, like you don't need to have a spinach omelet in the morning if that's not your jam. Like if you're like, I just want oatmeal and I want some stuff in there. I mean, please don't feel like you have to put pumpkin in there, but then getting in those vegetables, because what that does, especially at dinner time, like if we're saying, well, to kind of have a smaller dinner or not make dinner your biggest meal, then if you put, like you make lasagna and you're like, well, she said to have a smaller dinner and like, look, it's on the plate and there's nothing there. And then you're like, no, but if you fill half of your plate with vegetables, like look at all this color and look at all these nutrients that you're getting in, and they're going to have fiber. So they're going to help to fill you up, and then you're getting in more of the good stuff that you need. Okay. So including vegetables with lunch and dinner, making sure that you have enough water. So like water throughout the day. And I would say, like, this probably gets a lot of kickback, but like you probably don't need a lot of liquid sugar unless it's fuel for your exercise. So like I'm all about a sports drink before you work out and during your workout if you need it. But like if you're not doing anything, then you probably don't need liquid sugar, because it doesn't, it needs no digestion. So it crosses your intestinal lining right away and it goes into your bloodstream. Perfect for right before working out. Right. And definitely like if your workouts are over an hour, absolutely like take that in. But if you're sitting around watching a football game and you're drinking copious amounts of Gatorade, it's not really necessary. So, so making sure that most of what you're drinking is just water is really great.
And what's a good target as far as like how many ounces for body weight and all of that kind of stuff?
That's individualized, but
complex, nuanced, of course.
I know. But where, so the National Academies of Sciences, Medicine, Engineering, I can't remember, but they put out like for men, it's about 4 liters a day. And for women, it's about 3 liters a day. And that is all the water. So if you're eating like grapes and cucumbers and soups and stuff, you're getting in water. Okay. So then you're like, well, Tiffany, that's not very helpful. You're right. So I would say like taking half your body weight in ounces and starting there and then building up. And ideally it should be, your pee should be light lemonade.
Gotcha.
So if you, if it's too dark, then you're not hydrated enough. If it's too light, that means that like maybe you didn't, it didn't absorb very well. Okay. So then,
so you might be like flushing nutrients through your system kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And so, so that would be the place to start for water, is about half your body weight in ounces and then kind of going up. Cause as you increase your hydration level, like that's where it's set. So people will be like, oh, she said 90 ounces. Totally. I'm on it. If you're only drinking 40 ounces and then you go to 90 ounces, well, you're going to pee it all off because your body's like, whoa, wait, hold on. I need to adjust my blood pressure and I need to adjust my body temperature and I need to adjust my bladder. Like there's so many things that come to you filling up on water. So when people are like, yes, I'm going to drink a gallon a day, and they're like, all I'm doing is peeing. And you're like, well, yeah, your body hasn't had a chance to get used to it. So
interesting. So do you have to start to increase that then?
Yes.
Like
so then
that dosage almost?
Yeah. So like let's say if you're like, I'm going to do 90 ounces a day and you're at 40, then next, starting today, drink 50 and do that for a week, and then do 60 and then do that for a week. And then, but That's where consistency comes in. And consistency is not very sexy because it's kind of boring.
Right.
And so nutrition, for some reason, has become like, it should be flashy and sexy. And you're like, actually, it's pretty boring.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a lot of meal prep Tupperwares.
Right. It's just a lot of the same things over and over that are not flashy, but they work.
One of my favorite like sayings, Michael Smoke says this all the time, and mostly it's about like videos, training, whatever. He says about so many things as a blanket statement that it's not easy, but it is simple.
Yes.
And it sounds like just like playing back what you just said there. So we've got eating meals that are like start bigger and then get smaller throughout the day. For lunch and dinner, have vegetables involved.
Right.
Drink your water.
Right.
And
then the other one is make sure you fuel your exercise.
Okay.
So if you're working out early in the morning, like don't do that fasted, because then your body has gone 8 hours without food and you're like, oh yeah, I'm really going to work out hard. And it's like, on what?
Interesting.
Yeah. So fasted exercise, it actually increases your cortisol levels, because that's the thing that wakes you up in the morning is high cortisol. And then if you don't have any glucose coming in, glucose comes from carbohydrates. If you don't have any of that, then it's like running on adrenaline, and it's like, okay, so this, the body has decided like, we're going to work out really, really hard on not any food. We should probably save some fat for that, like just in case they don't feed us again. So then people are like, I'm working out all the time and I'm just not eating very much and I'm not eating a lot of carbs and my body composition is changing. You're working out all the time, not on any fuel and not enough carbohydrates. And that typically is the impetus that you need to change body composition, is you just need to fuel your workouts. And so this is where nutrition for health and nutrition for sport are very different, because I just said, like, don't drink a lot of liquid sugar, moderation in treats, because that's what all dietitians say. But then I'm like, but I would love it if you had a sports drink or some gummies or some graham crackers or some Goldfish, applesauce packets. Like, I want simple carbohydrates before you work out, because then your body doesn't have to work on digesting them. They instantly go into your bloodstream and it's like energy. So then you work out and you start feeling better. Like, you feel powerful. You're like, oh, I can keep going. Like, I've got this workout. Like, I'm not dead. I'm recovering well. Like, I'm fueling up before your exercise has so many benefits besides giving you energy in your workout. It helps you recover. And it's going to help you with muscle mass and all of that. And then you're not going to be so hungry later in the day.
Interesting. That's so, yeah, I think that alone is such a helpful thing, but that stack of information, I feel like, is so actionable for people too.
Oh yeah.
Like really, if I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, I mean, I tend to eat that way anyways. My dinner and my breakfast is probably about the same size with like a smaller lunch. So that might be something that I change. But, that seems like it doesn't seem like you have to, like, you don't have to go to a nutrition store for any of this advice. No. You don't have to really change that much. Most people have access to some kind of water throughout the day.
Right.
So that's really interesting to me that like, it really can be that simple.
Yes.
And then from there, you're just kind of good to go. Like do the boring stuff.
Right.
And then you're good.
Right. And and then if there's things that like, okay, well now I'm stalled out, or then we adjust your, look, I mean, and I rarely have people start tracking their energy intake from the beginning, because I need you to just pay attention to what you're eating. Like, I don't need you to count it, because that can also be like not a very good feedback loop for some people, especially if they have a poor relationship with food. But like, yeah, it's all just very doable. And then we say, okay, now let's do like, maybe we need to adjust your protein and bring it up a little bit, or we need to, include more carbohydrates at this meal, or,
Interesting.
that sort of stuff.
So you're saying that you can make these changes and like start to eat in that pattern, start to drink the water, start to do all those things without tracking your macros, just to figure out like, okay, at baseline, what do we tend to be eating?
Yes.
What are the patterns here? And then we can adjust from there.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? We're taking a quick pause from the show to ask one small favor. When we were looking at the stats of the show, we noticed that most of the people that listen consistently actually aren't subscribed to the show yet. So the one ask that we have today is if you could take 10 seconds and whatever platform you're listening on right now, head over to our page and hit the subscribe button, and it would be a huge help for us. Growing our subscribers helps us bring on more awesome guests, and it really helps us build a community of people like you that we're trying to foster with this thing. So that's the one ask that we have. Please go hit that subscribe button, and let's get back to the show. I started tracking macros for the first time ever, like probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And the only one that I had ever like kind of gone through is like have the same amount of grams in protein as you've got in your body weight. So I was shooting for 200 to 210 each day. But for the first time I started tracking my macros. Luckily I eat kind of the same thing every day anyways, but I realized that I eat like a ridiculous amount of fat every day.
It's not uncommon at all.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh no, what are we like, how do I keep missing this fat goal? And then I realized everything from like the amount of eggs that I eat every day to the sausage, the breakfast sausage, and throwing butter in the breakfast sausage, like all of the things that started to stack up. But it's so helpful because since I already kind of ate similar stuff all of the time, it was easy to be like, okay, well, like I'm not going to put eggs on my beef and rice bowls at night anymore. Because I don't like have the fat and I don't need the protein. So we're just going to like stop doing that. But it was like little changes at that point instead of having big ones, which is cool. So one of the things I want to do, can we drill down into like a couple of these, like kind of like what we were doing? Okay. So for the exercise thing, by itself, I'm really interested in this because I just made a switch from working out in the mornings to the evenings and I've seen like crazy results from it. And I was doing the like fasted workouts in the morning, not because I thought it was like trendy or anything like that. I just would wake up and not have time to eat. So I just go straight to the gym. But one of the things that I started to notice is like my lifts have gone up like crazy. I've started like eating more carbohydrates and I'm just kind of fueled because I've been eating throughout the day. But a lot of times I have like more energy in the workouts and they feel more powerful. And I had no idea what like the downfalls of the fasted workouts were. Other than like, I would just be tired some days or like feel sluggish. So if I were to go back to some of those morning workouts and try to like give that a go again, cause I kind of like starting my day with it. How far in advance do I need to be eating or taking in sugar? Like what would be a game plan for like trying to do that thing in the correct way?
So, I love that you're feeling better like that. And the connection has been made. Like have food in my belly and my body and I'm getting stronger. But in the morning, it's really, so the recommendation before exercise is like 15 to 30 grams of simple carbs, 15 to 30 minutes before. So if you roll out of bed and you don't take a medication that makes you wait or anything, then you can have like 2 applesauce packets or 2 sheets of graham crackers. And that should be enough to like, that's enough carbohydrates in, if your workout's going to be about an hour. The other thing that you can do is do that. And then, if you have a little bit longer workouts and we say like anything over 60 minutes, then we would want to fuel through. So then that's where we would have like 30 to 60 grams of carbs during your workout. And that's where like not a sugar-free, but like where a sports drink comes in handy.
So like a regular sugar Gatorade or like something like that.
Yeah. And so like I recommend, there's a ton out there and there's so many great ones, but like the reason Gatorade is so great is because it has 2 different types of sugars so that it doesn't overwhelm your absorption sites. So if you only have one type of sugar, then it can overwhelm those sites and some of it might not be absorbed. And so then, or Scratch also has a little bit more sodium in it and it's a lighter flavor. So if you're like Gatorade tastes like 7th grade track and you're like, totally get that. Then Scratch is another one. There's also some others, but just a regular sports drink is great. Or if you're like, I don't like the taste of them, you can do something like gummies or another applesauce packet, simple carbohydrates in the middle of your workout.
Got you. Okay. And then what about on the other side of that? So if you are somebody who works out in the evenings or afternoons or whatever, where you've kind of been eating throughout the day, I would imagine that simple carbohydrates in that window is probably still helpful.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What about on the other side? Like, what does it look like to be like overfueled or to have like too much in your system? Is that a possible thing where you can have like start to see negative results if you have too much food in you before you go? So,
when it comes to utilizing fuel for exercise, we have carbohydrates are the one that we would exogenous sources of carbohydrates, right? So like simple carbohydrates, so outside sources, because your body has enough fat for fuel for lower intensity. Like you don't need to ever eat fat during exercise because it's like, it has enough stores to do that. So if we say like about 2 hours before or an hour and a half, foods that are high in protein, fat, and fiber slow down digestion. And so then if you had like, yeah, I went out to lunch and I had some nachos and, they were like the best nachos and they have a lot of fat, they have protein in there.
Yep.
And you're like, and I've got to work out in 30 minutes. You're like, that you're just not going to feel good because your body then has to make a decision between giving blood and attention to your gut or shunting it away towards your muscles. And so that's where like, if it stops the digestion, then you got a bunch of food in your gut and that doesn't feel good.
Right.
And that will be the thing that it'll do. Like, it's not going to say, well, we're not going to give any blood to the muscles, because you're like, we're still digesting. You'll just have a really bad gut ache. And not only that, but especially so like things like fiber and a little bit of fat will bind with glucose so that it, we'll take it out. And like, then you don't have that glucose has to still be digested because it's mixed with all the other nutrients. And so then you just might not have the energy. You're like, gosh, I just ate a whole bunch of food. Why don't I have energy? And it's
because
all
the glucose is stuck in like the digestion process.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so because it is, it's not those simple, and this is way too simplistic of a model, but it's not just like free carbohydrates that are kind of at your access. Like if you woke up in the morning and just had them so then the best thing would be like, if you had those nachos, enjoy them, give yourself 2.5 hours to digest them.
Okay.
Then you could have like, oh, well, I kind of maybe I have some fruit snacks and then I go and do my workout.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so helpful to know. Okay. So 2 hours after, let's just call it like a regular meal where you've got some kind of protein, some kind of carbs, some kind of whatever.
Right.
Okay. That's super helpful.
Yes.
And then what about after? So one of the, like base things that I learned when I was like 12, when I first started lifting was, I think it was like called the anabolic window, like after you're done working out.
Yes.
I've heard this is one of those like signal to noise things where I've heard both sides of the coin that you like have to get protein in within 30 minutes of your workout. And other times where it's like, shut up, dude, just eat protein throughout the day and you're fine.
Right.
So what is the best game plan for after that workout? As far as like refueling, getting your body, the fuel it needs and all that kind of stuff.
So anabolic window of opportunity is what that
okay.
30 to 60
we were
minutes.
So close.
Yes. No, it was good. No, anabolic. That's great. And so your body needs, it overall, like it's what you're getting consistently in, right?
Okay.
That is going to overall help with the gains that you're looking for. So like more power, more muscle, body composition change, et cetera. If the only time that you're getting protein is right after your workout, well, that's not going to be helpful, right? So, but I always say 30 to 60 minutes, and I make it a priority because otherwise sometimes people forget to eat. Okay. And so they'll go like 4 or 6 hours, and then you have now you're hungry. Like you're like hurting hungry, that because you just didn't refuel after your workout. So it is true that you'll recover better. And especially if you are doing workouts day after day after day, or you've got like 2-a-days, right? Like then you have to refuel after that. And it is protein, but it's also carbohydrate. So it's anywhere between 2 to 4 to 1. So 2 to 4 grams of protein 2 to 4 grams of carbohydrates for every 1 gram of protein.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And this is why, because your body just used, even if you take in those 30 grams of carbohydrates before, your body is using glycogen that's stored right in the muscles. And it is using, so glycogen is stored glucose. Glucose comes from carbohydrates. So it's using that. And so then you've kind of emptied out your glycogen stores. Well, muscle, like, a better VO2 max is going to come from when your muscles have more glycogen in there, that they can last longer at a higher VO2 max, which means less oxygen. So like this is where you're sprinting. So like maybe you can sprint for 100 meters before you fall over.
Right.
And then the more that your muscles can store that glycogen in there, and the more that you're working out, you're improving your VO2 max. So maybe now you go 110, like, you know what I mean? So all of that glycogen has to be replenished. And we want that to happen with carbohydrates, because if it's just protein, Protein then is deaminated. So they take the nitrogen off the protein and part of it becomes glucose that gets stored. So it's replenishing energy.
Oh, so instead of the protein going to where it should,
Yes,
it's like pulling it apart and saying, no, we need the glucose first.
Yes, we need energy that you just blew through. And so now we don't have enough protein for that muscle protein synthesis, right? And that's a very simplified version because ultimately you will have muscle protein synthesis throughout the day. But like that very short recovery time, like your body wants those carbohydrates so that all that protein goes directly towards its job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the understanding that I had previously, again, like about this anabolic windows, I would shoot for somewhere around like 40 grams of protein after a workout. Granted, I don't know where the hell that came from. It's just a number that I knew for some reason. But again, nuance everywhere.
Right.
But let's say for like an average person who's doing a 60-minute workout that has like some zone 2 and some like full anaerobic kind of stuff.
Right.
What would be a good target for like grams of protein and then grams of carbs to have on top of it just for like ballpark?
So, gosh, I wish I would have memorized this. There's actually like a gram per kilogram basis based on like 1 to 4 hours after exercise for carbohydrates, protein, sodium, and fluid. But I don't have that memorized. So the best thing would be like about 10 to 20 grams of protein.
Interesting. Okay.
Because your body is, it only can absorb so much at one time, right? And so like, exercise can sometimes dull the appetite because like you are, especially after a workout, because like you're bringing down your body temperature, your blood pressure is adjusting to going from like, bananas so that it's pushing all this blood. And now it's kind of coming back down. So the goal then isn't like your body's not like, oh, remember you're hungry. Like, remember we got to digest food. So cutting, like being able to have a little bit less and like, quality. So something that has leucine in it, which is the anabolic amino acid, which is like your whey protein. Soy has a lot of good leucine in it. So does cottage cheese, like any sort of dairy thing or like a whey protein is going to be really beneficial there. So then if it's like 10 to 20 grams of protein, then you're looking at 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates.
Interesting.
So then if you're taking like a protein shake that has 40 grams of protein, you're going to need like 120 grams of carbohydrates, which then that's a meal.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Which is fine. Like you can have a meal after that, but if it's something quick on the go, like it doesn't have to be huge and it needs to be a lot more carbohydrates than protein.
That's so interesting.
We really, like our poor carbs. I mean, they've just been made to be this evil thing. And it's like, no, actually that's your body's preferred energy source. That's what nearly all of your exercise, except for this low intensity uses is carbohydrates. And that's where like endurance really comes from the body's ability to store glycogen. So to make those, and the muscle cells have a little bit of glycogen in them, stored glucose, and so does your liver.
Okay.
And so for those muscles to have immediate access to that glycogen makes them go harder longer.
Got it.
And they're never going to do that if they don't have enough carbohydrates.
All I'm hearing right now is I get to start having pasta again.
Yes. Yes. Please do.
That's so great. What are some of the like post-workout, like cheat sheets then, as far as like different meals and stuff? You said, like my brain immediately went to like Greek yogurt with maybe granola and some kind of fruit in it or something like that.
That's perfect.
What would be some of the like top 5 easy things, like whether you go back home or whether you're like going to the office or something like that, you can just throw down?
So if you weren't going to be having a meal, so like one of the easiest things is those shelf-stable chocolate milks. They are in a perfect...
Like a Fairlife kind of thing?
Nope. Like the Horizon or Hershey. Fairlife doesn't have enough carbohydrates, but if you wanted a Fairlife, you could do that in like a banana.
Okay.
So that would be great. Or just like a chocolate milk that's going to have the fluid and the protein and the carbohydrates. So would the Fairlife. But yeah, the yogurt is good with some granola. Also like a couple of oranges and like those cutie oranges and a cheese stick is great too.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because that's going to be that right ratio. And if you wanted something like pretzels and, peanut butter, that would also count.
Gotcha. Okay. I love that. It's so much easier than it seems all the time.
It's simple, right?
Yeah. It's not easy, but it is simple. Okay, cool. So one of the other things when you were talking about VO2 max and sprinting, one of the reasons that I first started taking creatine was because of like athletic performance in that way. Creatine has become, it's one of my favorite things that started to become a little bit more mainstream. And even people who are like casually exercising are starting to be like, should I be taking creatine? I'm like, yes, please.
Yes.
But talk to me, I'm just going to leave it wide open. Talk to me about creatine and why it matters. Both for people who are like totally trying to max their athletic performance. And then also if it's something that people should be using, if they're just kind of like casually getting movement in and that sort of thing.
Right. So creatine is one of the most well-studied supplements out there. And there isn't much of a downside. And I'll throw in a couple of caveats in just a second, because you're already eating it. Like creatine is already found in meats that you're eating. So if you include meat in your diet, you're getting creatine in there. You're just not getting it in a specific dose like that of like the 5 grams at one time. So, but further research has shown that it has helped everything from like brain health and aging and definitely muscle protein synthesis in older people. So like having that stimulus of weight, like you can't just take creatine and not lift weights and expect to have muscle. Like you have, like lifting weights is the catalyst for muscle growth.
Right.
And so doesn't matter what you're taking, like if you're not lifting weights, it's not going to help. But with creatine, because it is a protein, that you just need to have enough water in there. And if you don't have enough, then it isn't going to help you out. I've also, so it's interesting that there's just this blanket 5 grams for everybody. So what about the 6'7" guy and the 5 foot girl, right? Like, so those are very different body types and sizes. And so it's dosed on, like 0.03 grams per kilogram.
Okay.
So if you are a smaller person, you can actually use a little less of the scoop.
Okay.
And then if you are a bigger person, like you can use a scoop and a half, but as long as you're having enough fluid, to wash that out. A couple more things about creatine is that it breaks down in the body to creatinine and then it gets utilized that way. If you put it in something acidic like hot coffee, it will break down the creatine into creatinine.
Okay.
If you leave it in a water bottle and leave it in the sun, like that heat will break it down. And then if you put it in something acidic like juice, it's going to break it down. So
good or bad?
Bad, because you're not getting creatine, you're getting creatinine.
Okay.
So it's doing the breaking down process you're not getting creatine, you're getting creatinine.
Okay. And then which is utilized differently.
Yes.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would want the creatine.
Okay. So talk to me if somebody's, so let's just take like the 5 gram, I don't know, widely prescribed dosage for this thing.
Yes.
If somebody's taking 5 grams of creatine per day, what can they expect to see as like, or what are the ideas for what somebody would see as far as, what their body's going to get out of that? And then does anything need to adjust as far as like water intake or anything like that to make sure that you're like getting the most out of it?
So what people typically see, and again, it works for most people. So if you're taking creatine, you're like, I haven't seen anything, then it might just not be like your body might be metabolizing it too fast. Or, I mean, there could be a whole slew of things, but most of the time it should be that you are able to lift heavier, like that you are able to improve performance on the metrics that you are looking at. So what it will enhance your training. So if your training is not including weightlifting, it's not going to build muscle mass. But if your training is including like improving VO2 max, like then it's going to support that, right?
Okay. So if you're running a ton, if you're doing all that.
Yes, it's just going to support the thing that you're doing. It's not magically going to make you strong and fast if you're not working on both of those.
But it'll help you get better at what you're trying to get better at.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And they've seen like, and I have, and it helps with recovery. Like it's really just a little bit more, helps you, especially if you're exercising, like you can just feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
You need to be drinking, enough water, which of course is like, I always say, like, if you're going to be if you're going to be taking creatine, then for females, you should be at that 3 liters and guys at least at that 4 liters, like those recommended, and that of water, because too little water can cause joint pain and all sorts of things. And then it can be just a little bit harder on your kidneys, and we don't want to mess with our kidneys. So, sometimes it can cause water retention because it is plumping up the muscle cells. So that is, so that can be like, some people might feel a little puffy.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if you weather the storm, like you go 12 weeks with it, that kind of resolves for most people.
Okay. Because I think general like gym bro understanding of creatine, right, is like helps your body absorb more water. Muscles need water to replenish, do all the things. And so like the puffiness is just something that comes with it.
Right.
I think that a lot of people's like perception of creatine is if you take it, you're going to either look puffy or look bloated or look whatever.
Right.
And so I think especially for people who are trying to like have more of like that like lean physique, or for women who are trying not to like, be bulky or whatever, that might be a deterrent from taking creatine.
Right.
Obviously my understanding of gym bro science is far from the truth in most times. But when you say that water retention is like a sometimes byproduct of this thing,
right?
Help me understand where the water retention thing comes in with creatine, because I think that might be a misconception for a lot of people, is that it just makes your body like puff up with a bunch of water.
Well, I mean, it is helping the muscles retain a little bit of water, and like water within the cells.
Gym bro science wins. Let's go.
Yes. One for gym bro.
Yeah.
But some people don't experience that. Like and so that's kind of where it is just maybe body type or the way that you're metabolizing or where your body is storing, just kind of how some people have like, it's the worst analogy, but if you've ever seen like somebody with a big beer belly, sometimes it's a jiggly beer belly and sometimes it's a hard beer belly.
Yeah.
Well, that just depends on where the fat is depositing behind the muscle, right?
Oh,
so
interesting.
like,
Okay.
So somebody that has jiggly, like it might just be that their fat is more on the outside of their muscle. And
interesting. Okay.
And so, which doesn't necessarily mean better. Like if you have more visceral fat, like around your organs, that's pushing your abdomen out. So again, like that could be the same thing with the water weight, is like, where is your body storing that in relation to your skin?
Okay.
So, and it can create weight gain, but not necessarily fat gain. Like it's just water retention, and maybe that your muscles are getting a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. One of my favorite things is that creatine is, and a couple of things that I'm like excited about that is kind of coming into more of like the pop culture stuff is some of the new things that people are discovering about it. One of the things that I've been the most fascinated about is like some of the cognitive health, which we kind of touched on a little bit.
Right.
I have like very briefly seen some of the things that it like might be beneficial for, but have you seen anything about the cognitive side of it that you're like excited about when it comes to creatine?
Not more than that it just can help. I haven't dived, I haven't done the deep dive into, and I don't know if it's more like memory or that it is brain protective. So it's less like I haven't looked that far into it.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, bro science says like the things that I've been excited about is, especially for like sleep deprivation. There have been studies that have come out that said like, if you are sleep deprived, the creatine can actually like help you with like wakefulness and alertness and things like that. I'm very sleep deprived today. So currently I doubled my dose. I'm on 10 grams of creatine today, which is great. But I think that that's just one of the things where, as far as like the basic supplementation goes, for if somebody's going to add something into their stack, I'm so excited that people are like actually considering that.
Right.
Just because there seems to be so many benefits from it.
Right. Yeah.
But as far as other supplementation goes, so if somebody has kind of like set the foundation that we've talked about, where they're doing the things with their meals, they're starting to eat vegetables, they're taking the water and that sort of thing. Creatine's obviously an easy one because it is so widely known.
Right.
What are some of the things as far as like, if somebody's going to have a very basic supplement stack, what are some of like the maybe top 3 things or so that you would say to start using as like the first couple tests that they run?
Right.
Once they get that foundation set?
So when we look at like a pyramid, supplements are at the very tippy top,
Right.
because a supplement isn't going to, cannot, like, you can't out supplement a bad diet. Right. And
It's not going to do the heavy lifting for you.
No, not at all. So most of the ones that I recommend are typically, because most of the time when we get these foundations in place and people are fueling their bodies and fueling their exercise, they're like, I feel amazing. Like, I don't need anything else because a lot of these other issues have dissipated.
Okay.
So go food. But one, like, for sure, vitamin D. I mean, we're just so, north of the 45-degree latitude, which I think is like Denver. Most people are vitamin D deficient. And we're finding that it's not just a vitamin, like it's a hormone precursor, and the fact that your body can manufacture it from the sun, like, is just great. Like, and you can't really eat enough vitamin D. It's just not in a lot of things. Like, it is supplemented in our milk. And you can get a little bit like in mushrooms and maybe a tiny bit in eggs, but that would be one. Omega-3 is just another big one, mostly because we, again, don't eat enough. Like, we're not eating enough chia seeds and flax seeds and walnuts and fatty fish. So an omega-3 or fish oil is kind of just the one that I would, the next one that I would put. And then the last one would be, if needed, and if you weren't feeling this from your food, might be magnesium. And because there are different types of magnesium. I have a cheat sheet so that I don't have to memorize all of the different ones, but they have different effects based on their different formulation. So if it's like magnesium phosphate or magnesium bisphenol, or I can't remember all of them.
Cheat sheet,
yeah. It's on the cheat sheet. Like that's, and so sometimes, like with sleep or with mental health, those magnesium, even like digestive issues, can be really huge.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay. And is that something that you have people feed in like after they've figured out their eating routine and all of that kind of stuff?
Most of the time, unless there's, like cholesterol levels are out of control, or like vitamin D levels are like, they're fine, but they're not, or they've never taken vitamin D. And that's definitely one that I push. Okay.
Got you. I've been able to obviously get super into some of the things I'm interested about. What are some of the things that, now that we've kind of talked about like some of the foundations, some of the supplementation, what are some of the things that you're the most excited about right now, as far as some of the work that you're doing with your clients, or some of the research that's coming out as far as nutrition goes?
So, I am a dietitian. I'm board certified sports dietitian. Okay. And so I love performance nutrition, which is actually just like well-timed doses of carbohydrates and nice. Protein levels that we are adjusting based on sport. So like different sports, depending on their intensity level, endurance, strength, power, have different protein recommendations, and then overall carbohydrate recommendations. So like when I have an athlete, that's really what I love. It's a lot of fun for me, because this is what I'm studying, and this is like, I have big goals. Like Olympic dietitian would be the best. Like that's what I'm shooting for. So, so that's the sort of stuff that I just love. And like, I'm working with one athlete, and he wanted to gain weight for baseball. And so since November, he's put on 14 pounds, and he's increased his exit velocity, like from 80 to 88, like we were talking about before. Yep. And like, I'm not measuring his body composition. He's 16. Like, we don't need to do that. But like, he is seeing that when he is fueling, he's getting stronger, and he's getting like his vertical went up, and he's lifting heavier in all of his lifts. Okay. And like, he is feeling better about baseball. And so like, so cool. Yeah. I mean, and he is literally just eating. And so, as he's gaining weight, then, recalculated. And I was like, dude, you're just like, I need you, like, keep on going, but probably just think like you can eat a little bit more, because now you need like 300 more calories to maintain this weight gain now that you've put this on. And so game on, like he just, so that sort of stuff. And when people are like, I've worked with wrestlers that have underfueled and like are stalled at weight, like they can't gain weight. And so just helping them like start eating and getting out of this low energy availability has just been so much fun.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So like really sports based stuff. What I find really interesting about that is like, I didn't know if that was going to go to like, there's a new study about, blah, blah, blah. It's so interesting that it comes down to like just the ways to manipulate protein and carbohydrates in order to increase performance.
Oh yeah. You would think that there's this secret sauce, but Team USA Nutrition has an Instagram account and they like recommend saving some of your Halloween candy because it's packaged and it's shelf stable. So it can go in your gym bag. It can go in your, soccer bag. It's not going to get squished like a banana, and like simple carbs, like done,
Really?
So Skittles do it. And if this is Team USA Nutrition, which is like the Olympic team dietitians, and that's what they're using for Olympic athletes, I'm pretty sure that if you're doing like a really hard workout for an hour a day, that'll work for you too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the other, like, I feel like that's one where I had started to hear that people were, I had heard that it was after workouts that people were taking simple carbs to like, replenish some of the carbs that you burn and then taking protein on top, and that candy had found its way into that like conversation. I'm curious though, I want to start on the candy thing, but I'm also so interested in like, what are the other things that just seem kind of insane when you hear that you should be eating Skittles as part of your diet strategy? So let's start on the candy thing, but I would love to hear some of the other ones that might be a little bit surprising to people that are like, weird.
Right. Yeah. Well, even just the like, so the reason that candy works, and I have learned, like, don't tell middle schoolers that they can have Skittles because they'll bring an entire bag of Skittles to their next wrestling match. But it is just simple carbohydrates. And so even like candy kind of gets a bad rap because it has dye, and it's like, but you don't understand, like all of your food is like that stuff is, like your digestive system is meant to block out toxins. So like it's hydrochloric acid that stuff is going through. So, and it's binding with fiber, all that sort of stuff. So like, I don't think that little bit of amount, it makes an impact long-term. Like you see very healthy people that'll have that, but it would be more of your fruity candy, not your chocolatey fatty candy, because that's going to slow down digestion. So even though Reese's are clearly the best candy, that's probably not the thing to have like during the middle of your workout because you just want simple carbohydrates. So nerd clusters I know are huge in like triathlon spaces and this endurance because they are just like, they've got a good mouthfeel and they're kind of, and they'll break down, but like gummies, gummy bears, gummy worms, all that sort of stuff is great to have during a workout or right before.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you could have it even afterwards because it is just carbohydrates.
Okay. Yeah. And then for target, like grams of sugar or carbohydrates or whatever, what should you be looking for if you're like, okay, I'm going to try this candy thing. I want to make sure I'm doing this right.
Yeah. So if you are like starting your workout, just that very simple, like 15 to 30 grams. So it is
of carbs,
okay. So carbohydrates are all of your starches, fibers, complex and simple carbohydrates. And so when you look on a food label and you're like, it has this many grams of carbs and then it has sugars and then it has added sugars and you're like, what? So it is like yogurt, for example. Yogurt has carbohydrates in it that come from lactose, that is the milk sugar. And that would be a sugar. Now, if it was sweetened yogurt with honey or something, that would be the added sugar. That would be part of the total carbohydrates in there. So, but going back to like either the added sugars or carbohydrates, that 15 to 30 grams, if you have a longer workout that's longer than 60 minutes, or you have 2 workouts a day. So even if you have 2 45-minute workouts a day, you could have 30 to 60 grams during your workout, like per hour. If you're doing endurance, like if you're going more than 2.5 hours, that moves from 30 to 60 an hour, every hour, to 60 to 90 grams per hour. So if you're going to do a marathon and your marathon time is going to be 4 hours, then you would want like 60 to 90 grams every hour. So at least 240 grams of carbohydrates during your marathon. And
are you ignoring the sugar stat on that one then?
Yeah, you want sugar. Like you don't want fiber because that's going to slow down digestion. And so when you're looking at the total carbohydrates of something that's a simple carb, which probably for most of us is probably something we shouldn't eat, right? Like that we've been conditioned. But like saltines are simple carbohydrates, goldfish are simple carbohydrates, and that total carbohydrate would be what you're looking for because they're not going to have fiber to take away from that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. God, that's so interesting. I did not think I was going to leave this being like candy.
She's just going to tell me to eat more broccoli. I know it.
I'm going to come home and be like, pasta and candy, baby. We're back.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, that's so great. Okay. One of the other things that's been popping up a lot for me lately is a conversation around salt and salt as far as salt like related to hydration.
Yes.
And so can I just leave it open enough for that one for you to riff on?
Yes.
Okay,
no,
cool.
that's, so as a, like 2,300 milligrams of sodium is what is recommended for the average American, right? But somebody that works out is going to, like some workouts, you can sweat between 500 and 1,000 milligrams of sodium per hour. So if you are like a sweaty sweater and you're like, there's like Tiffany underneath my cycle bike, you know, and I could exfoliate my face with all the salt that I sweated out, then you're probably not looking at just 2,300 milligrams. You're probably looking at like 3,500 that you need in a day.
Wow.
Iodized salt, even though it's kind of been by the wayside, like we don't eat enough iodine. So that's why they iodized our salt, because we used to have a lot of goiters, like thyroid issues. So if you're only having pink Himalayan salt that isn't iodized, then you might not be getting enough iodine. So making sure that so this means you can probably liberally salt your food.
Got you.
So, and where this notion of like hydration and salt, like making you feel more hydrated is that, when you only have water and you're on a low sodium diet, there isn't enough sodium to pull water from your gut into your blood. So you need that concentration difference, right? So like if your blood is saltier than the water that you're drinking all the time, or the food that you're consistently having, then the water is just going to go right through you. And
your body can't absorb it and like hydrate properly.
Right, okay. Right. But where we see, like, especially during exercise, you need carbohydrates and salt because they are co-transporters. So they kind of hold hands and they're like, let's go into the bloodstream together. And so then that carbohydrate pulls the sodium into the bloodstream during exercise simply because we're not digesting, right? Like we have a higher blood pressure, all that sort of stuff. Right. So that can help you to feel more hydrated. What I have noticed, especially with the, like all of these hydration drinks that are now like the new thing, is that some people are just saltier people. Like they just feel like, I was working with a gal a couple years ago and she's like, I am drinking nearly 2 gallons of water a day and I am always thirsty. And I was like, oh, you would be probably somebody that would benefit from like an element or something like that. And sure enough, like she was taking those, she's like, oh, I just feel so much better. And I was like, well, maybe if you have this higher metabolism or your body doesn't absorb as much sodium or whatever the case might be, then you might need that. But if you feel like you drink water and you feel satisfied, then you probably don't need electrolytes. Like, you know what I mean? But, but there is this, like your body needs sodium for all of its muscle contractions. Okay. And so if you don't, have it from your food, then what happens is that your body doesn't produce salty sweat. Like there are mechanisms in place so that your heart keeps beating. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, and what, our bodies will adjust absorption based on what we have. So if you're like salt averse, like you're like, I don't like salty foods, you know, I don't eat a lot of processed food, so I have low salt. Then your body's like, okay, well, instead of absorbing, I don't know, 10%, we're going to adjust absorption to 40% because they're not getting enough in, right? Okay. So your body does that on its own without you ever knowing. Like you don't like turn the dial and be like, I'm not drinking enough milk, absorb more calcium. But your body does that on its own. So basically, if you are an athlete, it's good to just be liberal with the salt. Now, some caveats are like, what if you're salt sensitive, hypertension or high blood pressure, that sort of thing, which is something that your doctor would probably tell you. But for most athletes, they don't, and most people that exercise regularly, like if you're going to sweat, then you're getting some of that stuff out. They don't need to be so low sodium. Okay. Got it. Yeah. So, what are you said that like the muscles need salt to contract and all that kind of stuff. So what are some of the things that you might notice if your body is one of the ones where it just doesn't absorb, you're not absorbing enough water, maybe you don't have enough salt? What are some of the things that you would notice if that's the case, where you like might need to start having elements or like putting more salt on your food? So if you are constantly thirsty, like, and I'm not saying like, oh, I haven't had anything to drink today, I'm really thirsty, but you're like, really paying attention. You're drinking 6 Nalgene's and you're like, I just am always thirsty. Or you start to have muscle cramps. Like muscle cramps can be either that, like there's lots of things that can come into muscle cramps. And I should say, like I am interchanging salt and sodium because salt is also sodium chloride. So there's chloride factor in there, but you would start to feel very crampy simply because your body feels dehydrated, even though you have enough, even though you feel like you're drinking a lot of water, and like all of your urine would be clear.
Okay.
Like it's never pale yellow. And so that would tell me that like, wow, we're not absorbing something. Okay. So then the first thing we would do is like, well, let's just try some electrolytes and see if that happens, or you start having some saltier foods. And if that doesn't work, then we say, okay, well, maybe there's something else going on and we need to, because there can be diseases that can cause that. So then we would say, then you need to go see the doctor. But you can go to the doctor and tell him like, I've done this, this hasn't changed.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So it'd be, your pee is always super clear.
Yes.
You're kind of crampy. Is there anything that you notice like performance wise, that might change other than cramps from like having enough salt having enough salt where you're like actually hydrated versus not being?
So those cramps would be limiting. Like it's like you can't, like you couldn't lift higher or you can't lift heavier because the cramp is the limiting part.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be like to the point where like you can't not notice it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so, but there isn't going to be like this fine line of like, well, you could be lifting, you could throw on the 2.5s, because you don't have enough sodium. It would be like, you can like, it's always cramping, or like if you go to do endurance, like you're noticing like, gosh, I just don't feel good.
Right.
You can also become like, if you don't have enough sodium, like low blood pressure. So kind of dizzy, that sort of thing. And because water, like sodium pulls in the water into the blood and helps to keep that a high blood pressure. So if your blood pressure like is either too, like there's not enough volume in the blood because we're not pulling in enough water, those can be things. So like if you start to get dizzy or, something like that, and you're like, gosh, I'm always getting dizzy, I'm hydrated.
Right.
Then I'd be like, okay, well, let's look like, how much are you drinking? Because some people think that they're hydrated because they drank 1 Nalgene. And you're like, no, I mean, that's great. That's a great place to start. But, but if it is like a substantial amount of fluid and we're not seeing progress from that, then sodium would be the next thing to look at.
Okay. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but you said that some of like the electrolyte drinks and stuff like that, that's another one that's kind of become more and more popular, I think. And I love them. To me, it's like, I don't really eat very many sweets because I think I've been conditioned to believe that they're the devil. Things might change after this episode. Yes. But it's like a nice little like sweet thing that I can have once a day or whatever. But I also noticed that sometimes when I lift in the afternoons and do like pretty just like heavy strength based weightlifting, and then go straight from there to boxing, which is like some aerobic, some anaerobic. If I have one of those like pre-canned Element, like 1,000 milligram salt things, I tend to like perform a lot better at boxing and not feel that like, holy God, I've been going forever. Is there anything kind of like what you're saying about the like Gatorade sports drink kind of thing? Is there any benefit to making sure that you're getting salt kind of in that window too, or like before you're going to work out, or is it more of like an all day, like long burn kind of thing?
That's a great question. So you would be doing back-to-back workouts.
Correct. Yeah. With probably 20 to 30 minutes in between.
And the only thing that you're having is the Element?
Yeah.
No carbohydrates?
Correct.
Until tomorrow. No.
No, tomorrow.
Until we start doing that.
Yeah.
So so yes, electrolytes are part of that, are part of what your body needs. And this mostly comes into endurance because when you're going a long time, but when you are having workouts back to back, that sodium can definitely help. But it might not need to be 1,000 milligrams. Like if 1,000 milligrams works and you feel great, then I think that's totally fine. My other guess is that your brain just got a hit of sweet, even though it's not true sweet.
Right.
And it's like energy. Right. And so they've even done, trials where they have just had, athletes do like a carbohydrate rinse and then spit it out. So they are getting just a tiny bit of absorption, with carbohydrates in their mouth, but they're not getting the full ingestion. And that's enough. Like it's a brain thing that the brain is like, whoa, we got some carbs, even though it might
spend some energy.
Yes. Yeah. And so then you feel a little bit better. The other thing too, is that sodium is definitely bringing fluid, into your bloodstream. So like helping you to cool off and that sort of stuff. So it can help you feel good.
Okay.
But the mechanism might not necessarily be 100% the 1,000 milligrams of sodium.
Got it.
It might be a couple more things in addition. Yeah.
Okay. And then what about just having that as like having some kind of electrolyte drink is like almost like a creatine thing where you're just like make it part of your daily routine. Where does that fit in for the people who keep hearing that like you have to take your electrolytes?
So we also eat electrolytes. They are sodium, chloride, potassium, and magnesium. Sodium being the biggest one for people who work out and sweat because that's the thing that you lose the most of.
Okay.
But you eat all of those micronutrients, like you are eating them. So you don't have to drink them. That being said, if it's the thing that gets someone from like 60 ounces to 90 ounces a day and they're more hydrated, I say go for it. If it's their mental treat that's like my chocolate chips after dinner, like I am going to sit and enjoy this, or this is the thing that gets me through my really hard part of the day, or like this is the trigger that gets me to my workout, I don't see that there's any harm in that. But I don't think that they are a necessary thing if you are eating food, which most of us eat food, then you are getting in electrolytes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's more of a Trojan horse to like get your water in and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And to sell. Like it's amazing. If you go into a convenience store and you look at, one time I counted like 37 doors for beverages at a convenience store. And this was kind of a bigger one. 37 doors of all different types of drinks.
Right.
This wasn't even the alcohol section. This was just drinks. Plus there was like a coffee maker and a slushie and a smoothie thing on a counter. And I was like, what is the draw for drinking? Like, why can't you just drink some water and like we have 2 doors instead of 37 doors?
Right.
It is just but the more choice that you have from a marketing standpoint, then the more inclined you are to buy something.
For sure.
Right. Because you feel overwhelmed by choice.
Yeah.
And so instead of saying yes or no, it's which one? Yeah. It's brilliant from a marketing standpoint. I'm not sure it's necessary from a health standpoint.
Got it. That definitely makes sense. Okay. So recapping some of the basic things again, when we started, we said like, what are some of the tools that people can have in order to do their thing? So I'm going to do my best to pop quiz myself here if I were to leave this. So, starting to have like lots of meals in the morning and taper off towards the evening. Mm-hmm. Drink your water, have your vegetables, some kind of energy before your workouts. And then for the supplementation, it was like some fish oil, maybe some magnesium, some vitamin D.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that we might be missing if somebody is like, finally, somebody's telling me that there's a billion things out here and like, I've got a couple of like core things to do. Right. Are we missing anything as far as like where a good jumping off point might be for somebody to like kind of start taking their diet and their nutrition seriously?
So if somebody had done all those baselines and they're like, okay, now I want to do some tweaking, and whether that is to improve lab values or to, they're training for a particular thing. When you were saying that you had started counting and you were finding out how much fat that you have, once we kind of get a solid like habits, then we can go in and tweak. So I always say like, something is better than nothing. And then we work on quality. Okay. So I don't start off and tell people that they need to do 87 things, and also eat broccoli. Like I just want you to be eating 3 regular meals and then we're going to work on stuff. And that's where we typically see this like American pattern of 30% carbs, 30% fat, 30% protein.
Okay.
Which is what we want, is especially for people who exercise. And I know I keep saying athletes, but like I see your metabolism changes when you exercise. Like you're not a sedentary American. Mm-hmm. You are somebody that is exercising. And so your body needs things a little bit differently. And that's regular exercise and, high school athlete looking at D1. Mm-hmm. But then we say like your body needs between 45 to 55% carbohydrates. Like it needs to be that half the plate. And that can come from whole grains. That can come from pasta, potatoes, all of that. And it doesn't necessarily need to be per meal. That can be meals and snacks like throughout the day.
Okay.
And then the fat is where we see the biggest change in like changing body composition and weight loss, is that we're moving fat from, like 35, 40% to like a modest 30, 25, 30.
Okay.
So it's not a huge difference, but fat is twice as calorically dense as protein and carbohydrates per gram. So there's 9 calories per gram of fat, and there's 4 calories per gram of protein and 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates.
Okay.
So very nutrient dense. So when I work with somebody, we assess protein needs first, because that's on a per kilogram basis, which is a lot less than what people think. Like most people, they used to set it at 0.8 grams per kilogram for Americans, because most Americans are sedentary, but let's just give the benefit of the doubt, like anywhere between 1 to 1.4 grams per kilogram. So
which is 2.2 pounds, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're looking at, what would that be then? About half
of your body weight.
Okay.
Ish. When we're looking at someone that's, just depending on endurance, or where athletes are anywhere between like 1.4 to 2, maybe 2.2 grams per kilogram.
Okay.
So, but that's kind of the higher end. So then we find that number, and then we find like 45 to 50% carbohydrates.
Okay.
And then we look at fat. And what that then becomes is, in fat becomes flavor, and that becomes a decision. So if you go and get nachos, for example, then, you've got ground beef that has a little bit of fat, cheese, sour cream, guacamole. You're like, okay, well, what am I going to taste the most? Like, what am I looking for? If it's good guacamole, maybe I want that over sour cream. Like clearly we can't make nachos without cheese, but maybe I put chicken, or maybe I just do beans. And so I lose a little bit of fat there, but where am I going to have the most flavor? And so it's not never having fat. It's making a decision on what tastes better.
Interesting.
So then if you go and have a sandwich, at a sandwich shop, and they put mayo and oil and cheese and avocado, you're like, what am I tasting the most? Those are all fat sources. Like what am I going to taste the most? What am I going to derive the most enjoyment from? And maybe that is the cheese, or maybe it is the avocado, it's just making a decision. And fat also gives us mouthfeel. So if you've ever tasted the difference between like the bougie 5% Fage fat yogurt, which is delightful, and then the 0% fat, which is also delightful, like the 5% is a source of fat, the 0% is a source of protein, right? And so like what the mouthfeel of the 5% is very different than the mouthfeel of the 0% yogurt. And so you have to kind of train your mouth for a different mouthfeel. So if you're always used to Alfredo and cheese and heavier foods, and you go to like, well, she said 30% fat, so there goes everything. And you're like, it doesn't taste right. And you're like, well, that's because you had this very thick mouthfeel, and now I have this lighter mouthfeel, and that's a difference. So I kind of have to incrementally get myself here, because if I go from one end to the other, I'm not gonna stick there. That sucks.
Right.
But if I just cut back a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and pretty soon, like in 6 months, I'm here. And so, and then I'm very choosy about my fat, and I am enjoying it instead of it being like this high fat, high protein, low carb.
Okay. So it starts to become like an awareness game at that point, where it's like start tracking the things, and then starting to like make, I would imagine, like database decisions at some point.
Right.
To like, okay, which of these am I going to keep around because they're like my non-negotiables?
Right.
Versus which ones are like going to start to like pass on a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. That was when you were saying the mouthfeel thing, that happened with me with like natural peanut butter.
Oh, yeah.
At one point.
Yes.
Where I like, for whatever reason, like my family loved Skippy growing up. And it was just the best. I would throw it on like English muffins with peanut butter, honey, bananas. Oh my God.
The
so
best.
good.
Yes.
But I remember when I was like, started being like, okay, I want to dial this in a little bit. I switched over to like the Adams, like natural, more natural peanut butter or whatever. And there was a little while where I was like, the Adams taste bad.
Yes.
Comparatively. Like I don't like this very much. And I like wasn't really loving that. And so I had a jar of Skippy that was like half full that every once in a while I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna get in there. But there was at one point where I like went back to the Skippy to have like a little bit of a treat, but then that just tasted like sugar paste.
Right.
And I'm like, well, shit, now I'm in this middle zone where like the good stuff doesn't taste good anymore. And like the healthy stuff also doesn't taste good. So now I hate peanut butter. And I was like screwed, so like I would imagine there's probably some of those like weird little like, and now I actually do enjoy Adam's peanut butter because I just stuck it out long enough.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. And even like going from sweetened yogurt to plain yogurt, like yogurt is fermented milk. It's naturally going to be tart.
Right.
And so if you're like, I like, there's no way I could have plain yogurt, then you're like, well, no, not off the bat. You're going to hate it. But if that's your goal and that's a place where you think that you can improve your diet, then maybe you just like take half of the sugar yogurt and mix it in, like kind of extend your sweetened yogurt so that you gradually get used to the taste. Cause that's just it. You're just retraining your taste buds. You're retraining your mouth and your brain. And we're very trainable. Like if you can do that with your muscles and you can, power clean like more than the bar because you've been working at it, like why wouldn't your body adapt to food differently?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny because I think sometimes you'll like roll your eyes at somebody who's like, oh, my sweet treat today was like a couple dates and some sea salt and whatever. I used to be like, shut up, dude. Have a Reese's, like, please God, live a little. And now I'm like, I had some dates and some sea salt and peanut butter. And I get like jacked about these like healthy, but kind of whatever recipes. Whereas a kid, I would have been like, get this out of my face. It tastes weird. It's not good.
Right.
But like somewhere along the way, dialing into like that point is like, it does start to, things that weren't treats before start to actually taste like treats.
For sure.
But it's not that you're lying to yourself.
No.
Because I thought so many times, I'm like, all these fuckers are crazy out here. And they keep lying about liking these bad foods.
And you're like, no, they just have gotten used to it. And then and then your taste buds change. Like I think one of my boys told me that something they learned in one of their classes was like your taste buds change every 7 years.
Right.
So like if you hated olives as a kid, which I would pick off every shred of like whatever looked like an olive on a pizza and mushrooms. And now I'm like, I could just eat olives out of a jar. Like I really like them. So it does take time, but I feel like we are so ingrained in this, like it has to be perfect right away. And if it's not perfect right away, you messed up and you need to go find the thing that's going to make it right versus like, we don't do that with anything, like anything else. You don't build your retirement fund that way. You don't build a house that way. Like there's so much time for everything else, but nutrition, it's like, you better be perfect right off the bat or you messed up.
Right.
And you're like, well, that's not fair.
So true.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really good bridge for, I wanted to like spend a little bit of time on like the psychology of food too, because I think like this has been so helpful for like actionable things that like really do apply to so many people.
Yes.
Like I feel like for myself, for my workouts and stuff like that, I have a game plan, now for some of those things.
Good.
And then also for people who are just like trying to have a better like flow and foundation for things. Obviously though, there is psychology that comes around. Like we started at the very beginning talking about how many different like places of our life that food fits into.
Right.
So what are some of those psychological pieces that you were just touching on that like really starts to come into place when people start making changes in their diet?
Right. So I'm working with an intern right now at Beartooth, and we were talking about like how much that I wish that dietitians got a little bit more just counseling, but I know counseling is like a whole world in itself because you do talk a lot about this. And so one areas is like this shame versus guilt. So guilt is the thing that will get you to the gym, maybe because you're like, well, I paid for this gym membership, so I don't want to waste my money. Mm-hmm. And you go there and then you have a good workout and you feel better about yourself because guilt got you there. Like, I hope that's not why we all go to the gym, but let's just be honest. Like,
there's a couple days.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But shame is like where you should be going to the gym and you're not. And that is, you're a bad person because of that. And then you internalize it because going to the gym is a lot of work. Like it isn't just what we see on social media that I lift, 2 days a week and boom, I have a 6-pack. You're like, no, it's like week after week after month after month. Like it's a lot of work to work out. And so then this internal shame and that is where with food, like we are made to feel that it holds some power, like that it is, it is very powerful. Like food is fuel, food is good. Like it really can restore your soul. But like you're not a bad person because of your food choices, right? Like, or this notion, another thing on here is like cheat days. Like you can cheat on a test and you can cheat on your taxes, but like, how are you cheating on food? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? Because cheating has this connotation of negativity. Like you've done something wrong and you're either getting out of punishment or that there will be punishment coming, right? So like if you quote unquote cheat on your diet, then you are going to, then there's some consequence for that. And so then that comes into play like, oh, the scale went up 2 pounds and it's because we went out to eat and I actually enjoyed myself. And you're like, that doesn't, like, you can't gain 2 pounds of fat in one day, even if you tried. Like you would have to be, did you eat all day long, like nonstop and just drink milkshakes? Like, no, that's, so that notion of like where we put ourselves in our brain, like we're making it more difficult for us to succeed when we've said, well, now you're a cheater and, you know, now you're shameful and you're a bad person because you didn't go to the gym or because you ate this thing. And that's a really hard place to want to make changes when you're like, screw it, I've already messed up. Like, you know, or like if somebody brings in donuts to work, and that's the first thing that you have in the morning. Like, well, I've ruined the day. And you're like, if you like went to the mall and bought like a really nice pair of jeans, would you just go spend your nest egg? You know, because like, oh, I've done it again. Like we might as well blow out the credit card and beyond it. You know, so those types of little things and the way that we present this, it's weird because we only do it with food. Like we just don't beat ourselves up over small deviations from what our plan was.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and don't get me wrong. Sometimes I have road rage, especially when people aren't going the speed limit, but like, I don't hit somebody with my car because you've made me late. You know what I mean? Like, but the way that we would treat ourselves if we messed up from our quote unquote diet is just, it's horrendous. Right. And so then again, like that's kind of where that relationship with food comes in. And what makes things really hard is there's so much information out there that like, you're bad if you eat this, or if you do this, or if you have these foods, or like, cannot believe you're feeding your kid this. And you're like, just, you have kids. And you know, like, and so there's just all of this stuff that we've put around food. It's almost like to avoid stress. I don't know. Like I can't quite figure that out, but like, it's interesting. It's an interesting observation.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm curious if like, as somebody who probably, like I would imagine for the people who aren't athletes who are just like, hey, I'm just shooting to like get to the max of my potential here.
Right.
I'd imagine that there's probably other people that come to you that probably do start in that spot where they're like, I don't know what to eat. I feel like bad about myself.
Yes.
Like they probably come in that state where they have a terrible relationship with food.
Yes.
And so I'm curious from a psychological standpoint, is the goal to try to get them to a point where like, when you talk about food, you're like, it's good for the soul. It's exciting. It's this like I can tell that you're just it's an exciting part of life for you.
Right.
So I'm curious, like, what is that psychological journey for people like, and what is the goal of it? As far as like the landmarks from going from like, I am the worst person alive if I eat a donut or whatever, all the way to like being excited. What are like the milestones of like falling in love with food or having it be something that like is a healthy relationship instead of this like touching the stove sort of deal?
Yes. No, that's a great question. And I'll say, number one, it's a lot longer than what you would think it would be. Like it's not a 30-day challenge. I have several clients that I've had for years, because it just takes time to change. So first what happens is like, is just helping. I do a lot of education, like a lot of like, this is actually how the body works. This is what the nutrients are, because then it kind of takes a lot of that noise and then just puts it like, it's instead of this huge cloud, it's like, oh, that's a balloon full of a lot of noise that I can let go. Like it's not going to cloud my day. Like it's there, but it's not the whole thing. So typically the way that it works is like they start fueling just those principles that I told you, and they start feeling better.
Okay.
Then they start to notice that they don't have these quote unquote addictions to sugar, to fat, to fast food. Like they don't feel that drive to have something, and I'm using the air quotes, bad.
Okay.
Because it's not off limits. Like, so then they they start feeling better. They have more energy. They start to see food differently. Like it is, when you can have everything, Like nothing is off limits. It's what's going to make you feel good. Then like, it's not like the big button that you can't push, right? Like you're obsessed with like, I can't have dessert. So I want it, but I shouldn't have it, like, so then you have this whole entire conversation about how you should not have the donut when you could have just had a bite of the donut and been like, it's stale anyways. I don't want it, like, so then they move from there into like a testing area. Like we had vacation or we went, it was the holidays or something. So like a big food event that is really normally like a stressful trigger, and they managed it and they didn't have any setbacks. Like they maintained their weight or they actually lost a couple of pounds. Like and so then they gain confidence and then the noise just isn't there. Then we can work on very particulars. Like now I want to train for a marathon. Okay, well, we're going to be eating a lot more like, or whatever the case might be. And so it goes from this, like everything is there and it's so overwhelming to like, actually, I just really wasn't fueling myself. I'm not addicted to this. And this kind of just liberation of all of this, all of that like ugliness and darkness, that is around food to a sense of confidence and to like, this is my life now. And when they get it and when they fuel their workouts and they're like, I actually didn't hate, I hated the workout because sometimes when it's hard, you're like, I hate the workout. And you're like, but I loved it when I was done and I felt really good. And like, I just had some graham crackers before and you're like, I know. Like,
right. Yeah. And you got to have graham crackers. How cool, right?
I know.
Yeah. That's so cool. So it sounds like education really is like the linchpin.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. When you understand how the body works, then you're like, actually, that would never, like, why would fasting ever work for an active person? Like, no wonder you couldn't do intermittent fasting because you're an active person. Like, your body needs to be fed. Or like keto, like you have hormones and hormones are made from protein. So we need carbohydrates to spare protein. So like keto doesn't work for you if you exercise, and there are some outliers that are like, will become that fat adapted endurance, but that is so far and few between that you can't make a book and a following on it because most people can't.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there might be like one or two people, but when like I was reading a book about this was a long time ago, but a marathon runner who had, essentially done keto and become fat adapted. Well, then you look at like the hundreds of Kenyans and Ethiopians that win marathons and their diets are 70% carbohydrates. And you're like, this one guy, or like everybody that wins a marathon. Like, I don't.
For sure. Yeah. Survey says.
Yes, exactly.
Carbs.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. It's so interesting because it's like trying to look for the thing behind the thing with all of those.
Right.
It seems like just like knowing what is up with the food. Like,
right.
How is it going to, like, what are the ways that you can really break it down? The thing that like you're the most excited about after 17 years comes all the way full circle to like, we can pull these two levers of carbs and protein and then so many cool things happen.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Like, I think it's such an exciting thing even for me to think about because like being able to have like a very simple tool or a very simple filter to look at the world.
Right.
And be like, yeah, okay, I don't need to worry about this like thing about seed oils and this thing about dyes and this thing about this diet and that diet and like all of the different supplements. Like it seems like that's almost like a tuning fork for that signal to noise thing. Where it's just like, if I can just understand at the base of all of this, it really comes down to like a couple different macronutrients. That's all I have to worry about. Like, it's so cool.
Well, it's just like what you do in your job. Like you are looking for people's stories. So they'll tell you all these things and you're like, but actually what I'm hearing is this. Like, and I see the way that you light up when you talk about this or this particular customer, or this is the person that you really want to help. And like, I can help you tell that story. And obviously there's going to be people that, are going to be like, that's not the person we want to work with. If somebody like loves keto, that's great. Like that, there's butter there. But like if, and when you can help somebody with nutrition, like understand that and not be so nervous and confused and about it, then they really see that it really isn't rocket science. There's so much stuff that we can learn, but it really comes down to a lot of basics. And when you see like, especially in this country, all of the public health initiatives that we've made with nutrition and how our population doesn't have particular like berry. This is why we put B vitamins in grains because people weren't eating enough vegetables. So I put folate in grains because of neural tube defects. And you see like people are like, oh my gosh, we shouldn't be fortifying our food. You get people to eat vegetables. Like they're not going to do that. So then we've decreased neural tube defects by so much, and it's because of that, because now people don't have to go get collard greens and kale and spinach because they're not going to want to eat those. They just, they're eating bread and cereal. So we just fortify it. And you're like, here we go. Or like the whole thing with the iodine and goiters and everything. Like it's amazing what we've, like people don't even know what a goiter looks like for most people,
right.
But it used to be a very prevalent thing. And in some other countries that don't eat enough iodine and don't supplement, like they do have that. So it's but there's reason behind it. Like it isn't magic and it isn't against you. It's for you. Right. And so I think that also brings a sense of ease. Like nutrition is fascinating and wonderful and can do so many things, but it's also very basic.
I love it. An hour and 45 minutes later, all to get back to.
Yes.
This is so simple.
Yes.
I love that. Well, this has been super helpful for me. And this is like, it's such a treat because for so many of the, like I said, the episodes that we've done before, I've been like so excited to be able to sit down with somebody who I'm just like, let's just nerd out for a little while. You're like this wealth of information on these things, which is so cool.
That's awesome.
One of the things though, for this podcast that like, I'm really wanting to lean into is that one of the things that seems to be like the common thread among like all the different guests from nutritionists to like touring musicians and whatever is it seems like there's this common thread of you like found your thing, right? So like somehow you found that being a dietitian was like the thing that you would spend 17 years doing.
Right.
And then it sounds like you've like taken everything else and be like, no, I'm just going to get really good at this thing. One day I'm going to be a dietitian for the, US Olympic team. And
Hopefully.
like, I'm moving everything else aside
Right.
so I can do this. I want to inspire more people to do the same thing on this show throughout all these episodes. So what did finding that thing look like for you? And then what advice would you have for somebody who's like trying to find that thing and then like actually spend their life devoting themselves to it?
So for me, I didn't even know that dietitians existed. Like my first degree is in animal science, which was a lot of science, and ruminant nutrition, which was mostly cattle nutrition.
Okay.
And so my first job out of college was cattle superintendent at a feedlot that was like the research side of this like eight area feedlot thing. Anyways, and I was like, and also at the same time, I ran in college a little bit and I was training for my first marathon and no nutrition, by the way, don't do that. But I like being in the gym and running and finding other runners. Like I found that like, man, I really want to help people who run. And so I think that would be nutrition. And then I met with, so I quit that job and I tried personal training and that didn't work. And I, remember there was a lady that wrote for the newspaper and I called her and was like, hey, cause this was before emails and stuff. And I was like, I want to know what you do. Like, I love what you're talking about in the newspaper. And so she met with me and, she told me like, all you need are those two little letters, which is RD, registered dietitian. I was like, that can't be that hard. Actually it is. It's like a whole nother degree. And so but what I was learning was like fascinating because it was science. It wasn't applying to cattle or pigs or sheep. It was like science it was applying to people. And it seemed to just make so much sense. Mm-hmm. And so it was hard, like science, like dietetics is hard. And then when I did my internship, because all dietitians, now they have to have a master's, which is why I'm going back to school to get my master's. But back then you just had to have your degree and then an internship and then you sat for the exam. Okay. And so my internship was at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston, South Carolina. And like, it was a medical university. So a lot of teaching. Yeah. And like dietitians could work anywhere. Like, but I mean, they were doing pediatrics, they were doing digestive disease, cardiac, weight loss, schools, like so much stuff. Uh-huh. And I was like, and everybody eats and nobody knows this stuff. Like so I was always excited about it. And then my husband and I, we lived in Alaska. And so I was able to teach at the university. So I was teaching for 8 years, the science of nutrition, like the very basic. And like, so every semester I would get new kids and I was like, we're going to learn about this. Like, it was so fun to see them see like that it wasn't stressful.
Yeah.
And I think and then it just kind of kept going. Like, then the more that you meet with people, the more that you're like, I'm seeing these common threads of that sort of stuff. And once I knew that you could be a sports dietitian, I was like hooked. Like, athletes was where I wanted to go, and only because they had half of the puzzle figured out. Like, their job was to work out, right? So like, nutrition really is, yes, nutrition science, but a lot of it is like how the body moves too. And so throughout all of this, it's always been fun and it is work, but it's not work, right? Like, it's just, I mean, I could do this all day. Like, and
there's like anybody, a passion that's underlying there.
For sure. And if I could, and the more that people know about this, and that's the other thing too, is like, people are so stressed out about food but it doesn't have to be. So like, if you could help people not be stressed out. So I think for, how do people do this is, what is the thing that you love to do? And it doesn't have to be the thing that you have to do. Like, we were, I can't remember what the boys and I were talking about. And they were like, oh, it was in a different, my son was reading a book about a different culture and the lady was a housekeeper, which was like the lowest rung there. And I was like, actually, Bradley, there are some people that love to clean houses and it brings them such joy to put somebody else's house in order. And there's nothing low about that at all. Like, if that's the thing that you love to do, like, even though society might say that that's not the best thing, like, if that's what you love, do it. Or like organizing people's closets, or, helping them with their homework, or making food, or taking care of kids. Like, I think that there's just so much, if it doesn't feel like work, then that's your thing. Like, the thing that gives you energy. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I think that, I forget where I heard it, but there's maybe it's, I'll put it in the show notes. This is going to bother me until I figure it out later today. But anyways, there's somebody that says, find something that, looks like work to them, but feels like play to you. Naval Ravikant, that's who it is. We got it.
Nice.
But yeah, find something that looks like work to them, but feels like play to you. And I think that that's such an exciting thing because like, when the days get long, when you have to go back to school, when you have to do whatever the thing is, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever this is going to take, because it's what I want to do, but it's also what I enjoy to do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So cool.
Yeah.
So for somebody who's like, so you taught for a long time on this, you've had a long career doing this. Like, sounds like you've built a life really that's like, this has kind of been a common theme since you found it.
Right.
For somebody who has just found their thing and they're like, hey, I'm in the starting blocks. Like, what do I do here? There's a lot of hard stuff that you have to do, I'd imagine, to like actually make that your life at that point.
Right.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's like, they found the thing and they're like, okay,
now
what?
Well, I would say my husband has always been very supportive of this and of it being passionate. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a spouse. Like, I would say that if it's the thing that you love, make sure that it makes sense to somebody else that knows you very well. Like, if it is, cleaning door frames, just because I'm looking at the door and you're like, I just love it when there's a clean door frame. And they're like, okay, well, I think that's great, but I don't know how that's going to pay the bills. Maybe it's part of a bigger thing or, so that would be the first thing, is like, what does this look like to somebody who isn't passionate about it? Like, how could this be a job or a thing that you do? Because then maybe somebody sees like, yes, that's great. But like, I never know what to talk about sometimes for nutrition. Cause I'm like, well, what don't you know?
Yeah.
Right. Like, I've talked about it already, so I love it when other people ask me questions or like have ideas for that. So I think like finding that support base, it's going to be like, okay, well, that's fine. This is good, but this is what it might look like, or I've seen other people doing this, or like, how can you make this your niche? Because you want to be successful at the thing that you love. And maybe it doesn't become a full-time job. Maybe it just becomes a really passionate hobby, or like, what if it does grow? How do you pull people in? Kind of just thinking about these other things so that you can, continue to do what you love to do. And then, and also don't be afraid to fail. Like, I've tried business. Like I've tried, you know, in the hospital, long-term care, wellness, and the thing that has been like the constant is just a love of nutrition, but it's looked different in different seasons, you know, and also, especially for nutrition, like get the credentials, because then you can always have a job. Like if you are like, I love nutrition, but I'm just going to be a wellness coach. Well, that's fine. But like, if you have to go to the hospital and work, you're not going to be a dietitian. Like you're not going to, you know, you've got to have those credentials. So what would be like the most qualified that you can be so that people can't tell you no. Right.
Yeah.
So that would be, and this is where getting the master's comes in, is I have the experience and I'm technically grandfathered in, but nobody's going to look at my resume if I don't have an MS after my name. Got it. Because that's what every other dietitian has. And so it's worth it to me to see if that would work. Got it. So find somebody who's like attached to you, but not attached to the dream. Right. So that they can like help almost like mentor you from like that 30,000 foot view that you're just too close to have. Right. And then, yeah, I love that. Be willing to feel seems like such a common thread. Oh, and it's so hard. I mean, even just this jump from like my own private practice to working with Beartooth is, I mean, it's the smart, right move, right? Like in so many things, but that was also my baby for a long time. And so it's that letting go, but like, I can't be so attached to that I can't fly over here. Right. And so I learned a lot and I gained a tremendous amount of skill, and now is the next step versus like, that was a failure. When am I going to fail at this? Right. So at the end of the day, I feel like it's a success as long as you're the fact that you're continuing to build a life around this thing that is clearly your passion and your love. To me, that's a success regardless of what that looks like in different chapters. Right. You know, right. Yes, for sure. I think quitting is where the failure comes in, not the little like bumps along the way. Oh no. And you always learn. Like I'm a very different dietitian than when I first started out. And I still love it. And it's still fun. Yeah. Right. And like maybe the Olympics never comes to fruition, but I'm not going to not try. For sure. So, because they're going to Brisbane in like 2032. Like, wouldn't that be the best? So much fun. Get you on the beach. Yes. Do it. Well, this episode has been so cool. I think that this is going to help a lot of people. Awesome. And I'm super excited that you have chased this passion that you have, because I can't even imagine the ripple effects that you've had from like changing these people's lives, and then what they do as a result of that for, just the sheer impact that you've had. So, right. Well, thank you. It's a joy. Yeah. Very grateful you do what you do. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks again for the time. And thanks for listening, everybody. Love you, and be where your feet are.